list off some questions and we'll go through them and it'll be good.
Sounds
You guys
good.
ready? Okay. How did this opportunity come across your desk? What was like your first reaction?
So, like, for me, I honestly don't really remember where, but I saw some kind of article on the internet. Like, I found a couple, it was like, I found the article on like 10 different sites now. I'm not sure which one it was or how I stumbled across it. Probably somebody posted it on social media and I read it. It was just talking about that program that they have up at Licking Prison. I thought, hey, that's cool. I wonder how they're finishing their quilts because they're making lots of quilts. I wonder how they're finishing them. So I did a little digging and found the administrator of that program within the correctional facility and talked to him about it.
Yeah, and for me, it was an email from that administrator wanting to talk about details and scheduling the delivery and stuff because Michelle has a huge heart and she is not the type to come and say, hey, look at what I did. So I was like, almost deleted it thinking it was spam, like somebody going, hey, I need this. And then I was reading it and I'm like, wait, no, like this actually mentions our machine and like when is the delivery. And so I went over and was like, hey, what'd you do?
Yeah, when I contacted him, he told us that they were finishing their quilts. They had a domestic machine on a wooden frame.
Yeah.
So they had something there, but it certainly wasn't nearly as efficient as having a full long arm. So we talked about getting them something that would help them finish those quilts, even more quickly, so they could get even more of them out to the foster children.
So, what did like the planning process look like? How do you even start with something like this, planning it and getting it to a prison? And
oh man, so I'll tackle that one. So I got this email with a lot of information. Obviously, if you've had the pleasure of watching the program, you see them go through different levels, and you can't have any write-ups in order to be there. Pretty strict. And I'm like, we're getting ready to take a quilting.
So we really had to screen our resume every time we get sent, right?
That's true.
Just kidding.
And we chose Kent and Andrew, so there's that. But so we were like, okay, we got to send the right people. We got to make sure we fill out all the paperwork correctly. The guy was great and gave me a lot of forms to fill out and all this stuff. But honestly, it was a little nerve-wracking because like we're taking in machines. We're going to send guys in there with tools, and you hear prison and your brain doesn't go to a good place. And so you're just like, oh my goodness, what do we do? And then you're like, well, they can't be bad because look at what they're doing. They're making these quilts and they're benefiting all of these kids who need this. And so we just kind of strictly went through the paper, made sure we had everything, properly labeled, found a couple of guys to go in there, and just tried to make sure we jumped through all the hoops correctly and did everything correctly.
what has it meant to you personally to be involved in something like this?
Well, I think, Andrew and I have been, around foster kids and, around, the idea of foster care has been something that we've supported, for a very long time, going back 20 years or so. We often give to, charitable organizations that involve foster care. My mom is a CASA back in Washington State. We've supported out there as well as the CASA here in Missouri after we moved. So it's one of the charitable things that's pretty close to our hearts. And so when I saw that program, and I'm like, hey, they're doing something really cool, and maybe we could help.
For me, it's just, I think the best thing is seeing people who are found themselves in a situation that has profoundly impacted their lives, and they found themselves in prison, and to choose to be involved in a program to benefit kids, and to try to make a positive difference in the world, that just gives me hope in people.
Yeah, to see them, doing something, not just productive, but really thoughtful and caring and stuff, with their time, and kind of like that story of redemption, right? Like a lot of these guys, like some of them have done some pretty bad things. They can't directly make up for that, right? But they can still choose to do something good and positive with, with their lives, and to, help them be able to do that is pretty cool too.
Yeah. I really enjoyed in watching the program. I can't remember the guy's name, but he was making the one quilt, and he was trying to line the colors up just right and do all this, and I was just like, I don't know, the joy in seeing him do that was huge for me, because I hear customers talk about the piecing and laying things out and choosing the colors and choosing this and choosing that, and to go, wow, they can choose to spend their day fighting in a courtyard, or they can choose to spend their day, using colors and creating designs, and the butterfly guy just made my day, like all of his butterflies, and you could tell they were so proud of what they were doing. They stood tall, they did all those things, and to know that Gammill played a part in that is pretty awesome.
So, when you found out the machine would be installed in a prison, did anything surprise you or stand out to you about the setting?
Well, I've never been to a prison before. How about you?
I've never been to a prison before.
Well, and I'd never been.
It was exciting at first. When we pulled up to the prison, it was like, wow, this is a legit prison. It was kind of intimidating a little bit.
Yeah, it was. It was. I mean, we weren't exactly sure where to go in, actually. But there was a parking lot, and but we were driving a big truck with the machine inside.
Can you describe what it was like walking to the facility for the first time with the quilting machine?
Honestly, it was kind of surprising how easily we was able to get in there. And then all the inmates walk in, there's a barber to the left. I mean, just a sewing room to the right. It's pretty cool.
But before then, I was surprised at the security process to get in. So, when we finally fumbled our way through the interaction, through the glass, telling them what we're here for, they had us drive around the back, and that was their truck entrance. And we had all of our setup tools and all that stuff, because we're going to not only put it together, but then do the calibration and teach the guys how to use it. But we're used to being able to bring like our whole toolboxes and everything in. But we had to really pare down what we brought in there, because every single item, like Phillips screwdriver, blue handle, and like straight blade screwdriver, red handle, 3-inch, every last thing that we brought in was inventory. So we were laying out the tools on the back of the truck, deciding what things we had to have versus what we could leave behind. Because once we went in, we were in.
I know that they was just excited. I mean, they was ready to quilt. While we was still there putting it up, they was ready to quilt. And they did quite a bit when we was there. Andrew showed them a lot of stuff. One thing that really got me when we went into the prison, because we had to go through a lock gate to another lock gate, and they let us bring in only a handful of tools. We didn't have nothing to open the boxes with, so I was going to use the T-handle or whatever tool I had. But one of the inmates is like, "Whoa, I got something to open boxes," and he comes with the X-Acto knife. So
Yeah.
that's how trusting they are. That's these guys have built their relationship with the guard and stuff enough that they trust them with these tools and stuff. And it was just it was really weird.
We found out later that they had to check out the
They did
X-Acto
have to
knife
check it
and
out.
check it back in. So there's like a log that keeps track of where who last had the X-Acto knife. But yeah, it was I don't know.
It was still very much like a prison, even in the trustee part of that, because when we went in the little room where we set the machine up, the door locked behind you. So we was locked in there. No one could let us out except for one of the guards.
Yeah, but at the same time, on a day in and day out basis, it was so obvious that these guards with these particular prisoners, they had their guard down. Not that they weren't doing their job, but they was
almost like friends in a way. They
Yep.
were joking with each other, picking on each other. They were-
exactly like
they was
friends. Yep. I want to mention something else. I had a little nagging worry, as we're showing them how to use the machine, and I saw all the things that they had done on their home, I don't want to call it a home type machine, but the one they had to use before, which I'm sure somebody graciously gave to them. But I saw that they had done on that, and I thought, well, like, they're going to have to maintain this machine themselves, right? So we showed them all the things that we show a normal machine owner. We're like, you know, every 8 hours of quilting, you want to put a drop of oil in these places, and this, that, and the other thing. But there's no way that they would have any ability for, you know, to call tech support or something like a normal person can. And I remember, you know, putting down on a piece of paper, because they don't have computers inside them. They don't have access to a phone. And I remember putting down some information on a piece of paper, wanting to make sure that, hey, if you guys run into any trouble, I wanted to make sure that they got help. And I checked in the computer one time, and there had been one time that we got a call in from one of the guards, and I think it ended up somebody was new and had put a needle in backwards or something silly like that. But yeah, it really, I'm really glad that they have a machine now that they can count, you know, that'll just run and run and run and run without having to be rebuilt every couple of weeks.
And the one guy was pretty sharp with the machines. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
He's pretty smart.
Yeah, he was, he, like the professor on Gilligan's Island, could pretty much do anything with coconuts and a little bit of string. Well, speaking of art, this showed up unexpectedly to the Gammill office. I don't remember if there was a letter with it, but this was
the guard that delivered it, though. The guy that walked us in.
Was it? Okay, I wasn't there when it came in. But we've had this with us, you know, since we moved actually, because it came to the old location. One of the guys, one of the inmates there was an artist, obviously, and it's crazy. I mean, it's like a photograph of the machine. I don't know what it was that inspired him to paint it, but it's pretty special. He put a lot of time into it. I'm not an art appreciator exactly, but it's pretty amazing. Maybe he's in prison for counterfeiting. It's a really good likeness. I don't know.
What do you hope this machine will bring to the men in the future?
You know, I wasn't really thinking about the men, the inmates, because they weren't thinking about themselves. They were thinking about the kids that were going to get these quilts. And I think because that was their focus, that was the same way that I was thinking as well. But I have no doubt that the purpose that they have, because they work 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, at least at the time we were there, that was their like work schedule. And like, you have to have purpose in life, and a lot of the people in prison probably don't, but these guys do, and they were really dialed in on it.
Why did you want it to be a secret? Why didn't you tell anybody that you donated a machine?
I'm gonna say because that's not who Michelle is. She mentioned her mom's a CASA, or, you know, court-appointed special advocate. She, you know, has a heart for foster kids. But that's who she is. She's gonna go the extra mile, and she's gonna do the right thing whenever she can. Not because it's Gammill. You know, she could have said, "Oh wow, look at us! Look at what Gammill's doing. Gammill's so special." It wasn't about Gammill. At the end of the day, it was about the foster kids, where her heart lied, and making sure that, you know, she was able to help, is what it comes down to. And if she's able to help, she helps. She's helped me in my family with different situations. I've seen her pay to fly somebody home because their family had an emergency if they were somewhere. She doesn't ever say, you know, put the spotlight on me and look at what I'm doing and what Gammill's doing. She just does what's right. And for me, that's why there wasn't a banner on it. We didn't say, "Oh, look at us, look at what we're doing." And honestly,
We wouldn't be today if
We wouldn't be.
if we hadn't had so many people ask how'd they get a Gammill, right? And we kind of feel like, you know, maybe somebody should get the answers to their questions.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But like, you know, for me, it's like, I didn't, you know, like, it wasn't just me,
Yeah.
like I made the ultimate decision, but like we all participated here at Gammill. Like, we didn't do it as a marketing stunt.
No.
We did it because we wanted to help out the program, the prisoners that are doing this work, and then the foster children that benefit from it. That's why we did it. And it wasn't really a secret. Like, everybody around here knew what was happening, but we just didn't want to turn it into a marketing thing, because that's not what it was about. And I think, for me, that really comes back to how I was raised, and the whole idea that the biblical principle, like, when you give in secret. It's not about announcing it to the world, right? That's not why you give, is to say, here, look at all the great things that I do,
Yeah.
right? So that's really, it wasn't about telling everybody else about it. It was about helping the people that are being helped.
Well, last question for you. What do you hope people take away from the story behind the story?
I don't know.
I think just that, we talk a lot about why people quilt, right? And that the idea that, or not idea, just the fact that most quilts that are made are given away. Quilts are made out of love for someone, whether it's a family member, a friend, a foster child, a veteran, a homeless shelter, a pet shelter, right? Almost all of the quilts that anybody makes are made out of love to be given away. And it's really cool to see that vastly different parts of society can participate in that,
Yeah.
right? And, participate and then also be the beneficiaries of that. And, we tend to think of this is kind of what quilters look like. Well, these guys don't look anything like most of the quilters out there, right? But you watch that video, the Netflix special, or you read the articles, or you talk to the guys, and like Jen was saying, they're all into the colors. They're not just slapping fabric together and cranking out quilts. They are really into making the quilts like any other quilter is, and really learning the craft as well as making the quilts, and that's really cool.
The guy that was in charge of the fabric and the tools, the way he had it all organized. Okay, so all of this is for kids, all of this is for that. Totally reminded me of my stepmom's studio. She's got fabric on fabric on fabric. They are quilters. That was the title of that show, and that's who they are. They're creating the designs, they're using the colors, they're doing all those things, and I think.
And that story of redemption, where you can your past does not define you.
No.
You can choose at any point in your life to turn over and become a new person, and that's really cool too.
It is, and to have a part in helping somebody who chose the wrong thing to now do the right thing is awesome, and that's not to get weird on you, but for me, that's what God does for me every day. He looks past the bad things I've done in my life, the wrong things I've done in my life, and allows me to do good things and take part in good things, and to see that example living out, and then to see the faces of those kids. I'm a crier. The faces of the kids at the end when they were on the beds with the quilts. I'm like, that's what this is about. That's what this is about.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.